Good afternoon, everyone. We will begin our time together with an invocation. So I invite you into a time of reverence for this invocation. Let us just take a moment to arrive and be present here. Take a deep breath for finding a parking place, perhaps. But being here for this occasion of remembrance and gratitude. Each of us grounded in that which is sacred in our own hearts. Gracious Spirit of love and life, we are gathered here from myriad faith traditions and philosophical beliefs to offer our prayerful gratitude for the generosity of those beloved family and friends who have died and provided a gift of learning, their own body. This afternoon, we honor the legacy of education provided by those who saw beyond their own death to provide such a gift. And we call upon the students who benefit from this gift to continue to seek clarity of mind in their way forward, integrity of speech, and a compassionate heart, in honor of the journey of knowledge and wisdom which has been provided to them. In gratitude for all that is our life in this sacred time of gathering, may we heed this call to invocation and be present then, in gratitude. Each of us arriving a bit more deeply to that which is sacred in our own hearts. So may it be. Shalom, Salam, Ashe, Om Shanti, Amen.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this service of remembrance. Today, we remember those who have generously donated their bodies to the Indiana University School of Medicine for use in the teaching of the anatomical sciences. My name is Dr. Andrew Dean, and I'm the Vice Chair for Outreach in the Department of Anatomy, Cell Biology, and Physiology here at the Indiana University School of Medicine. I want to welcome each of you to this service of remembrance. We're so happy you could be here with us today. Like all of my colleagues who teach gross anatomy across the state, I am a classically trained anatomist. I gained my firsthand knowledge of anatomy in the cadaver lab as a graduate student in paleontology at the University of Toronto back in 1998. I remember very well the two donors I was fortunate enough to study from and who I will forever be grateful to. Few individuals have had as profound and meaningful an impact on my studies and career as they did. I'm not a physician, but that experience has allowed me to forge a road that has, for the past 20 years, included training future generations of physicians. I started to try and count how many of these students have passed through my lab, but I lost track and then I just kind of felt a little bit old. Either way, those two donors back in 1998 have now impacted thousands who have gone on to continue to positively impact the world. Whatever successes I have or may have had, and whatever positive impacts I may have on others through my work are a consequence of that donation. As the site director for Human Structure Anatomy course at our flagship medical campus in Indianapolis, I enjoy seeing this very same dynamic play out on a year-to-year basis with our students. Our incoming students are all really whip smart, but when I first see them, they're barely 2 weeks out of their undergraduate studies. They're essentially focused on a study, exam, repeat cycle of learning. Medical student is really just like any other set of classes at that point. The very basis for learning is to succeed on exams and to move on to the next level. All of that changes, though, when they arrive in the gross anatomy lab. A lot has been said about the donor being our first patient or the first teacher. Neither of these is wrong, but I think that the student-donor relationship goes well beyond that. The donor is, simply put, the first person that the student encounters in medicine. Before gross anatomy, learning has a very traditional and formulaic nature to it. Success is measured as a letter grade. But these donors are persons. They had lives. They had loved ones, aspirations, successes, and failures. Each one was an individual, but what they all had in common was their incredible generosity and the understanding that their one selfless act is a force multiplier that will profoundly impact the lives of so many others. Of all the lessons our donors teach students, the most valuable is what the students are learning, what they are fortunate to have an opportunity to learn from this generous donation matters. It matters because it is important to people just like the donor. It isn't about learning to do well on board exams or passing the next simulated procedure. It's about learning so that you'll have the foundational knowledge you need to make important decisions that will profoundly impact people. Learning to make the world around you and the people in it better. If anything, ours is an educational partnership with these donors, where they are responsible for the most important and impactful lessons these medical students will learn. Like the alphabet or numbers, anatomy is a foundational and critical subject to the practice of clinical medicine. My job is to provide students with a working understanding of human anatomy. But what our students learn from the donors themselves is why the experience itself is so transformational. Part of my role as the Vice Chair for Outreach is to work with the IUSM Alumni Association. They have an annual homecoming event where they try to have visiting physicians come back and to donate to the program. Believe it or not, these retired physicians don't really want to tour the genetics lab or visit the dermatology classroom. They want to come back and see the anatomy lab. Anatomy is easily one of the most defining experiences of medical school. And I'm certain that this is in no small measure due to the giving, altruistic nature of the act of donation and the considerable value and applied responsibility that one derives from that opportunity. Few experiences in medical school are as powerful and formative as what happens in the anatomy lab. I'm absolutely certain that part of what makes this such a special and important experience in the professional and emotional development of physicians is how their relationship with the donor helps to form their very understanding of medicine, their role in the medical establishment, and how they can harness their talents and skill set to effect very real and positive change for people. Your presence here today is a testimony of the love and the memories you have for the people that we wish to publicly honor and give thanks to. My responsibility and hope today is that I convey to you just how valued and significant your loved ones' donations truly are. Their impact goes well beyond the simple training of physicians and the details of human form and structure, but to the very core of their understanding of their identity and obligations as a physician. It is truly a remarkable gift of themselves. This is also a service of celebration where we reflect on the life and character of loved ones and all that they meant to us. Each human donor was a vital person and a member of our society, loved by so many who deserve our respect in death just as they did in life. It is truly a privilege to have the opportunity to study the human body in an anatomy classroom. Our donors and you, their families, make this possible, and we thank you for that. Shortly, you're going to hear from student representatives from the schools of medicine, physical therapy, and our physician's assistance program and occupational therapy on the impacts that these donors have had on their lives, their learning, and their future careers as healthcare professionals. This is a student-organized and led memorial service, so their involvement here is yet more evidence of how deeply they have been impacted by the incredible gift and generosity of our donors. Thank you for your support of the anatomical education program, medical education at IUSM, and thank you for joining us here today to give thanks to these very impactful, giving, and kind individuals.
This poem, this poetic reading by Andre Gide seemed so apt for today, particularly as we have come into this building from the beautiful spring outside. It begins, life brings its freshness as an ineffable gift. Every moment renews our vision, and the land bursts again into flower. And we are amazed at the world's wealth. Death is no more than permission granted to other life, so that everything may be ceaselessly renewed. The plowshare of sorrow, breaking the heart, opens up new sources of life. The possible is striving to come into being, and nothing grows and blooms save by giving. All things ripen for the giving's sake, and in the giving then are consummated. a poetic reading by Andre Guide. My name is Rev Marianne Macklin. I am a parish minister here in Bloomington. Yes, I've already been working today. But I also spent this year as a chaplain at the Indiana University Hospital, Health Hospital here in Bloomington, both the Legacy Hospital, and then on December 5th, we moved, and now we're in the new building on 10th and the Bypass. We are here to recognize loss of a loved one, and as has been said, the gift of giving. But these past few years have had their own hardships. I've seen it in the hospital with COVID and people not being able to be with their loved one at death. My respect for all the medical staff grew immensely this year. Watching them try to bring families into the space while they were not able to be there physically. It meant so much to them on the family's behalf. And when a loved one dies, family and friends, we gather for many reasons, because life has touched us with grief, and we need one another's company for warmth and reassurance. Just to be together, to look into each other's faces here and see the common expression of hurt often helps alleviate the loneliness of those feelings and draws our hearts together in comfort. And again, we have not been able to gather together for several years. This afternoon, then, we bring our sadness to this auditorium, but we also bring our gratitude for the gifts given by our beloved ones. In their generosity, they have given the gift of education, which will be ongoing to so many others, and we will hear the voices giving testimony to that. In their memory, then, we are here to say yes to life's greatest expression, love. Love believes all things. I've seen it this year, hope all things. It endures. Yes, it does. It endures all things, and love, even in the midst of loss, never ends. The love of a spouse or parent or a sibling or offspring or friend or colleague, so many relations represented by those gathered here. In this time together, may we be aware of the spirit of love that brings us together this day, the comfort we find in community and family. May we affirm the source of being common to us all together for this service of gratitude. And now I invite you into a time of quiet reverence for what is sacred in your own heart, whether a prayer or remembrance, to honor that which is holy for you. May we be in silence together. In cherished gratitude, amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aisha Aldu. I'm an IU Bloomington medical student. I'll be graduating in 2025. And I just wanted to say thank you for your presence today and arriving and allowing us to have this very incredible experience. Beginning my medical career with my donor was an unforgettable experience. I was convinced that our first meeting would be adverse. I thought I would recoil and be unable to fully participate in the experience. I feared I would shut down emotionally and completely detach. However, when we met, I felt nothing but gratitude. He would be one of my first and most important teachers, people that I would meet in my medical career. Not just because of the medical knowledge I gleaned from studying the architecture of their body, but the way they made me confront my beliefs and my fears of failure, mortality, and humanity in medicine. In undergrad, I majored in medical humanities and health studies. I read books, short stories, and poems about the body, about medicine, and about death, from the perspective of physicians, patients, and students. I took a hospice course and volunteered, and every month I sat down with my class to discuss our hospice experiences and what our patients meant to us. We laughed and we cried and we critically analyzed the process of death and dying. With these courses in my arsenal, I thought I would be prepared. However, life in several ways made me put these theories that I learned to the test. In some ways, I was prepared, but I was not ready for the amount I was going to confront in these next 9 weeks of anatomy. In lab, I would often find myself talking to my donor internally. I did this to cope, to stay present, to reflect, and to confront all that my donor wanted me to confront. I would ask, how do I avoid becoming callous and cold under the pressure of performing well on exams? I was taught that prayer and meditation, no matter how short, can ground me to the present. This is a practice that I did every time before I enter lab, every time I go in for a test, and every time I go in for a standardized patient to this day. I asked, how do I face my fears of failing in medicine? Oftentimes, the idea of death and dying in medicine is seen as a failure. So when I asked this question to my donor, I was taught that like death, failure is inevitable. But caring for my patient goes way beyond the time of death. Honoring the patient and the patient's loved ones goes on well beyond that time as well. It is in how I speak about the patient, how I talk to their family and friends, how I treat my other patients moving forward, allowing them and their stories to impact me and my experiences. I asked, how do I confront the things that make me uncomfortable and fearful in medicine? I was taught that confronting those things can lead to unexpected results, some being gratefulness, growth, unlocked memories and traumas, and a deeper appreciation for my own mortality and usefulness. It is not lost on me that in the last 2 years, death has been very palpable for many of us, as something outside of our control has not only threatened to take the lives of those we love, but did. For me, it was my best friend at the very beginning of COVID, almost exactly 2 years ago, Eleftheria Onuaduebo. Today, you, the families who graciously allowed us to be a part of their stories, you will hear a lot of thank yous. So I too must say thank you for being a part of my grieving process, growth, and my medical journey. In Ibira, my mother tongue, we have a gospel song that we sing. I'll spare you my vocals, but I would still like to say it for you today. Avo eri, avo ajni, avo umetorome, avo poro. Thank you for yesterday, thank you for today, thank you for tomorrow, and thank you always.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carly King, and I'm also a first-year medical student, graduating in 2025, and I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak to all of you today. I also want to sincerely thank everyone who is here on behalf of a family member or friend who decided to donate their body for such a noble cause. As you know, the person you're here for today was incredibly selfless, vulnerable, and passionate about helping others. On behalf of the students, we thank you once again. But today we gather to recognize and honor the individuals who served as our first patients. We recognize this great privilege, and I'd like to take a moment to share how this experience has affected me. During my time with the donors, I spent a lot of time reflecting on our shared yet unique human experience. I think it's easy for all of us to develop a one-track mind and get caught up in the busyness of life. I sometimes catch myself just trying to get through med school, like they mentioned. Sometimes I don't feel the passion for what I do every day. I often feel like I live test to test, pulling late nights and early mornings. I'm sure other students in the audience have felt the same way before, and I'm sure many others have felt like that with other work-related demands and general life craziness. As a result, sometimes I find myself too busy to remember my why. For me, why medicine? Why am I putting myself through this? I'm sure if you ask anyone for their why, you will receive a very personal answer, and mine is no different. However, my why continues to expand each day, but I think it first started to expand the moment I met our first patients. So I want to take you back 1 year ago to my first day of medical school. On my first day, if I'm being honest, my main concern was that I would be the student to pass out in anatomy lab. But as I walked into lab without passing out, I found myself flooded with emotion. I saw a room full of donors who were selfless enough to help me, a complete stranger. As I walked around, I read each donor's occupation and cause of death. As a medical student, I really expected myself to be more interested in their cause of death. After all, that's the science part, right? But instead, I found myself continuously drawn to each person's occupation while completely ignoring the illness that ultimately took their life. I pictured each person happy and passionate as a bus driver, teacher, lawyer, a stay-at-home mom. And after a bit of reflection, I realized the full depth of what makes us human isn't physical at all. It's like Dr. Dean said, it's our essence, our passions, personality, goals, and dreams. So now on days that I feel too busy to remember my why, I think back to that moment in lab. I'm reminded of the selflessness that it takes to help others. I'm inspired by our ability to be vulnerable with each other. I remember not only my passion, but the passions of the people that I meet. Getting to help and connect with others on their worst days, when they are the most vulnerable, is such a special thing. And working with the donors reminded me of just how special that truly is. As I wrap up, I would like to leave you with a few points of reflection. I urge you to think of your why, and remember the why of the person that you are here for today. I believe we are all here for a purpose, and everyone we meet will play a role in our lives. I would once again like to thank each of you for being here today, and I really hope the service leaves you filled with our gratitude.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carson, and I am a first-year Doctorate of Occupational Therapy student in Indianapolis. I just first off wanted to thank you guys for coming to Bloomington today so we can show our gratitude for your loved one's donation to science to further the education of all future healthcare professionals here. I took gross anatomy almost a year ago today, and it was a one-of-a-kind experience that I will never forget. And it is thanks to your loved ones that we as students are able to be future doctors, occupational therapists, physical therapists, dentists, physician assistants, nurses, and many more incredible future healthcare workers. And none of this would be possible if it wasn't thanks to the selfless donation of your loved one. Occupational therapy is a holistic profession, which means that we look at every single aspect of a person, so not just their body, but also their mind and their spirit. Throughout my classes preparing for occupational therapy school, I took a lot of classes focused on the humanity and the basics of everyday life. I learned about psychology, disability advocacy, statistics, calculus, and much more, but I never imagined that I would learn the greatest lesson of all, walking into the donor lab for the first time. During my first semester of occupational therapy school, I learned of selflessness because of your loved one's donation and providing this opportunity. I learned about the complexity of human lives, the working parts that makes each and every one of us unique, but also the same, and also the foundation of what ultimately makes us human. It's really hard for me to put into words just how much it means to me, and I'm sure every other student here will express the same gratitude and feels the same way. I will be eternally grateful for the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I experienced during gross anatomy. This experience has pushed me to examine myself, to look at my desire to be selfless, my desire to help others, and what is at the core of my heart when helping other people. Although your loved one isn't here physically, the lesson that they have shared with me and every other student impacted by their donation will be carried on forever. Once again, thank you for being here in Bloomington with us today as we take this time to honor and share our gratitude for the selflessness of your loved ones.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ananya, and I, like everyone else, am a first-year medical student at IU. It is a pleasure to be spending this beautiful day in your presence, and it is an honor to be able to share my experience in human structure with you all. I wholeheartedly express gratitude for you having the strength to be present today while you still may be grieving the loss of your loved ones. And I hope that my story will show that your support as a community is invaluable. As a medical student, participating in human structure was one of the most enriching experiences I've had this year. And I can definitely say that it took me on a reflective journey unlike any other. I tend to be a very nostalgic person, so I still remember what it was like to open that locker and change into my scrubs and see all my classmates. We all were very excited, some of us with fear in our eyes, some of us with complete calmness, actually. I've met a few people like that. But I went into medical school in complete fear of being a medical student. I spent a lot of my undergrad years with my head buried in books and working multiple part-time jobs at once. Once I decided that I wanted to go to medical school, I lived my life in tunnel vision with only one goal in mind, getting into medical school. And I ended up starting human structure with the same mindset and found myself in an eager race with myself to master every detail and every disease that I possibly could. And I did so by neglecting my own health for a few weeks. I was so self-absorbed by my own fears, worries, thoughts, and emotions that it was not until later that I realized the real value of working with our donors. It was very easy to fall into a trap of thinking that I was the only one struggling this way, and lost sight of why I even came into medicine in the first place. This quickly changed throughout my time in medical school because learning about the complexity of how we're designed made me realize how many things have to go right in order for me to even be alive. Healthcare professionals spend most of their lives learning an exceptional amount about what can go wrong in the human body, to the point where some of us carry that mindset into our personal lives too. But it wasn't until I physically saw this complexity with my own eyes in the lab that I gained an appreciation for how we're designed. I became more grateful for how many things have to go right in my body for me to breathe, walk, talk, experience emotions, and things that I typically took for granted. I think it's human nature to be focused on things that we don't have or things that we don't like or wish we could do. Many of us spend our entire lives waiting for a moment or an experience to transform us, but we typically ignore the ordinary things in life that make it more beautiful. Sometimes we take interactions with people for granted or think that we have forever to experience what we want. But this experience taught me to seize the day and enjoy all the time that I simply get to be human. I smile a little more when each morning begins, and I laugh a little harder when people tell me a joke. I invest more energy into listening to what people have to say, because connection with others is one of the most beautiful things we can experience. I learn to embrace challenge with a smile when it comes rather than be upset about it. I learned that life may not necessarily be long, but it should be full. Ultimately, I learned to appreciate all the things that are going right in my body for me to be sharing these moments with you. I have no doubt that this will always be a source of fuel throughout my journey as a physician, and I will continually strive to support patients in any way I can as they pursue their own journey of embracing what makes them human. I once again thank you for being here today and taking the time to listen to what we all had to say. Though our donors are no longer with us, know that their contributions are going to make an impact for generations to come through the work of medical students and future physicians. Many of our donors were mechanics, engineers, teachers, physicians, and occupied unique roles in our community. I may never be able to know what their life was like or what sort of battles they endured, but I can say that I respect and value their contribution that will forever be a part of who I am. It takes great strength for you all to be going through your lives while grieving the loss of a loved one. Though I may not have interacted with you all personally, know that our donors and you all as families had a tremendous impact on our experience as medical students. I hope that you all are able to keep the memories you've had with your loved ones close to you, and let those moments you've shared with them become a source of courage to move forward with your daily lives. I wish you all the best for the future, and wish that each of you find the courage to embrace all the joyful, painful, and meaningful things that make you human. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leif. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Public Health here at IU Bloomington, and I teach primarily in the Master of Science of Athletic Training program. I want to begin by simply acknowledging how thankful I am to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. Over the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of teaching anatomy to students pursuing a wide variety of health professions. And while I'm certainly adamant that my own students learn to appreciate the impact that a donor will have on their professional development, I personally have never had the opportunity to impart sincere gratitude to the loved ones who have been through so much. So it's my hope that this brief commentary will, at the very least, provide some comfort by emphasizing the profound impact this gift has on our future healthcare providers. As I mentioned previously, my primary role as an educator is to prepare athletic training students for professional practice, and we've heard from other healthcare professions. So for those of you who don't know, athletic trainers, or ATs for short, work under physicians, but they're allied health practitioners who are trained in the prevention, evaluation, diagnosis, and rehabilitation of injuries that are common amongst physically active people. When I tell people that I teach athletic trainers, a common response is, hey, aren't they the ones on the side of NFL sidelines who run out onto the field when someone gets hurt? Well, my short answer is yes, but I remind them that actually only 2% of athletic trainers are actually employed with professional sports. In reality, ATs treat a wide variety of patients spanning high schools, colleges, hospitals, rehab clinics, physicians' offices, corporate and industrial institutions, the military, and even the performing arts. Simply put, a well-educated certified athletic trainer has the potential to improve the health-related quality of life of anyone, regardless of their discipline. I'm willing to bet there are several people here today who have sustained some sort of injury when they were younger, and now, several years later, continue to suffer from subsequent impairments, functional limitations, disability, or even societal limitations. The truth about sports and physical activity is that it takes a toll on our bodies. What seems like an innocuous knee injury when we were younger can certainly develop into something much more significant later in life. Something that prevents us from walking the dog, picking up our grandkids, and simply enjoying a long, active, healthy life. But what if we could train and employ certified healthcare providers who are there when the injury occurs, correctly diagnose that injury, and help outline a treatment plan that not only helps the patient get back to physical activity in the present, but helps minimize the potential for subsequent deficits that may occur later in life? Well, this would certainly provide a beneficial public health service, and it's this exact mentality that we aim to instill in our athletic training students. But, of course, without understanding how the human body responds to injury, without the confidence in their clinical skills, the likelihood that our students make this type of impact on our communities diminishes greatly. It's because of the selfless generosity from the medical donors we remember today that our students gain this confidence. Because of these individuals, our students have the knowledge to improve the long-term health and well-being of so many. As an educator, I often find myself reflecting on a popular quote by Father James Keller, who in 1945 founded a Christian inspirational television show called The Christophers. The quote reads, "A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle." This simple yet powerful statement emphasizes how each one of us has the opportunity to assist someone else, to help ignite a flame, without losing something as a result. As we live our lives, we develop skills, we learn life lessons, and we can impart these learned experiences to others so that collectively our society can evolve in a positive direction. I can't help but assume that anyone who makes the conscious decision to donate their body to science live their life either knowingly or unknowingly by this motto. They knew that even after a life well lived reaches an end, there remains an opportunity to light another candle, to impart critical knowledge and ignite self-confidence among our budding healthcare practitioners. And this light will inevitably spread infinitely as these students become clinicians and provide effective healthcare to their patients. I believe today is a perfect opportunity to appreciate the light that continues to shine from these individuals who provided such a selfless gift. Personally, I know I would not be where I am today without such gifts. I was once a student. I distinctly remember the aha moment during my studies where I began connecting the dots, and it all started because someone I don't know wanted to make every effort to help educate my generation of clinicians. As I move forward in my career in academia, I am constantly reminded of the selfless donors who have aided in developing my expertise. Practically every piece of clinical instruction I now impart to my students is rooted in my knowledge of human anatomy. And it's this instruction that helps ensure effective clinical outcomes for future patients. But this is just one example how the selfless acts of one person can positively impact the lives of so many. I'm confident that every single one of my athletic training students have been positively impacted in a similar manner, which is why I wanted to share just a couple samples of what my clinical anatomy students take away from this crucial educational experience. One student writes, "Clinical anatomy has prepared me in a very important way. I cannot expect myself to have the knowledge to diagnose and treat injuries from the outside if I have no idea what is within. This time in the lab with our donors has given each of us a new side of anatomy that many of us will never have known. We will all be more intelligent and considerate athletic trainers because of this experience." And a second student writes, "My experience during clinical anatomy was so educational and essential to my future as an athletic trainer. It is truly a gift to have the opportunity to take this class. I will continue to use the skills and knowledge gained through this experience well into my professional career. I'm a better clinician and can provide better care because of the invaluable knowledge learned during this course. I am forever grateful to the donors for allowing me and my classmates to have this amazing opportunity." As I close this brief address, I want the family members to know that each semester, I start my class by telling my students that their donor will be the best teacher they will ever have. And I can assure you that I have yet to have a student disagree with me. It is my hope that as time passes and you continue to reflect on the life of your loved one, that you add the titles of teacher and inspirer to the long list of their accolades. Most importantly, I pray that you find comfort in knowing that your loved ones have impacted the lives of many, many students, including myself, in such a powerful and positive way. The light of your loved one shines on through the passing of knowledge to our future clinicians, and this light will continue to emanate as countless patients benefit from their care. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. My students thank you, and we are forever in debt to your loved one's generosity.
In a moment, we will have the reading of the names of your loved ones. As a prelude, I ask you to bring out, if you have not already, your orders of service here. And we will have a reading, responsive reading, which you will answer with, "We remember them." This is in honor of your loved ones, but it's also for all of us. Anyone who has died recently, or you still have grief in your heart, we honor all today. It is an honor to be here to hear what these students have brought forth, and I thank everyone who's spoken today for your wisdom, your vulnerability, and your inspiration. From Roland Gildeson. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. Gracious Spirit of love and life, in the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live. For they are now a part of us, and we remember them. Thank you. So may it be. It's often said that the greatest prayer is gratitude. And so we have gathered in gratitude and prayer. Let us continue this gratitude for all the healthcare students, all the healthcare professionals and faculty, for all the readers here today who read names, those who provided the flowers, those who spoke their truth about their experiences, for our pianist, for all who have held space here, for our sign language interpreters. Deep gratitude. And thank you all for being here. And thank you to the staff of the Anatomical Education Program. I noticed too that they wanted to acknowledge the passing of Jim Hirnsma, the Anatomy Lab Director at Indiana University School of Medicine in Bloomington. And they said Jim was dedicated to ensuring the donors who entered his lab were treated with tender care, as well as fierce respect, and that the students had the best educational experience possible. So thank you, donors. Thank you. Please join me in a common prayer. Gracious God of many names and understanding, the curtain of death has fallen between us and ones we love. Give us the strength and wisdom we need as we go forth from this service of gratitude, the strength to face and endure loss and the wisdom to be with our grief in a way that continues to allow ample gratitude and appreciation for all of the gifts they brought to this life. And may each of us in the days and weeks and months ahead find comfort in that which never dies but lives forever, in that which gives us just a glimpse of the eternal, the beauty of a spring day, the blur of the red buds as we drive by, the warm breeze against our skin on a quiet sunny day in April, the beauty of poetry and its aesthetic whisper. Whatever our calling is in life, the fragrance of the daffodils and the flowering dogwoods, and our love and gratitude for those who have gone before, our ancestors, held in our hearts in the exquisite splendor of music. So may each glimpse of the eternal in this world speak to us clearly of that scriptural message. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So may it be. Amen. This concludes the 2022 Service of Gratitude. Again, thank you for attending, and please join us for a reception in the grand foyer until 4 p.m. Go in peace.